So I am really excited for today's recipe. Today I'm gonna teach you guys how to make a churro-inspired breakfast muffin. I was chilling in the bathtub last night, craving a churro, but it was late and I was like, ugh, not gonna eat it. But wouldn't it be really dope if I had something that I could have in the morning for breakfast that felt like a little more guilt-free, but also tasted just like a churro? So that's what we're making today, a churro-inspired breakfast muffin. I've already started sifting together my dry ingredients. The only difference between this recipe and typical baking recipes, we are actually not going to combine the sugar with the wet ingredients. You're gonna combine your sugar with all of your dry ingredients. The sugar is likely not gonna sift, the mesh is too fine. So sift together all of your fine powders first. That's your flour, your baking powder, your salt, and your cinnamon. Then you're gonna pour in your granulated sugar. Once you've poured in the sugar, just gently combine it with the rest of the dry ingredients using a fork. A fork is good enough. You just kind of wanna evenly distribute the sugar throughout your flour mixture. Then you're gonna set it to the side and get started on your wet ingredients. Sorry, that was loud. I'm gonna sit that to the side. I've got another shallow bowl that's all ready to go right here. I'm using 1 cup of oat milk. You can use whole milk if you'd like, but oat milk has that nutty taste without having any nuts in it. And the nuttiness of the oat milk tastes really, really good with cinnamon and sugar. So if you're interested in trying something that's dairy-free, I recommend going with the oat milk. But if you don't want to, you can totally use whole milk instead. I've got 1 cup of oat milk, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and add in 2 eggs. And instead of using butter for this recipe, I'm actually gonna use vegetable oil. Vegetable oil just gives everything such a moist and delicious texture. To me, it comes out so much better than using butter. The other dope thing about using oil instead of butter is that the longer you sit these out on the counter, the moister they get. Versus with butter, the longer you sit it out, sometimes your muffins start to taste really dry, and let's be honest, nobody wants a dry muffin. So I'm just gonna whisk all of my dry ingredients together, making sure all of the eggs are broken up. The oil and the milk has started to combine and it's no longer separating, and that is when I will know that this wet mixture is ready to be combined with my dry mixture. That looks well incorporated to me. I'm gonna bring my dry mixture a little bit closer to me. Slowly pour in your wet mixture. You don't want flour to go flying all over your kitchen. And then you're gonna fold everything together using a spatula. As with all things baking related, for the most part, you never wanna overmix. You're gonna mix it just until it's combined, and it's totally okay if your batter still has just a few little lumps in it. They will come apart when it's baking in the oven, I promise. Make sure you get all of that wet mixture out of there. I can already smell the cinnamon, it smells so good. And just gently fold everything together, kind of pushing down on your spatula very gently just to break apart any big powdery, floury lumps that may be inside of your batter. Okie dokie, so my batter is all ready to go. I'm gonna gently set that to the side, let it sit there for a minute because we have this bomb streusel that is gonna go on top of these churro-inspired muffins. Inside of a shallow bowl, I have put together brown sugar, granulated sugar, cubed butter, as well as flour. We are gonna combine all of that together using a fork or your fingers if you don't have long nails like myself. We want a nice crumbly texture to go on top. The flour does a great job of keeping the butter from melting. Let me try that one more time, ladies and gentlemen. The butter combined with the flour helps make sure that the butter doesn't melt all the way, and that's how you end up with a streusel topping. It's nice and sweet and crunchy. It's the perfect topping for these cinnamon churro muffins. I'm getting close. I can see that the butter is starting to break apart. I can't very clearly see the difference between the flour and the sugars. That's how I know everything is coming together nicely. I don't see any pockets of brown sugar. I don't see any pockets of flour. and the butter is starting to get smaller and smaller, creating these beautiful crumbles. You want your butter cubes to break down until, I would say, about the size of a pea. That's the biggest that you want them. You don't want it fine, like sand, that's way too small. You wanna stop before it gets that tiny. I just have a few more big pieces of butter. I'm gonna break those up with the side of the fork. So we're looking for a texture that's something like this. I can see larger pieces of butter in there, but they're not too fine. You're still big enough so that they're gonna melt when they're inside of the oven, but they're not so fine that it's gonna turn into a liquid too quickly. Now everything is ready to go for these churro-inspired muffins. I already have my muffin tins lined. I like to use an ice cream scoop for my batter. It just keeps things clean. I hate it when I'm pouring in batter and then it starts spilling all over the side of the pan. So if you can scoop everything up in an ice cream scoop, you can kind of shake off that excess and then you'll just scoop it right into your muffin tins. It's the perfect trick. It totally saves time. You don't waste any batter. I don't know why I didn't start doing this sooner. I feel like it would have made baking so much easier for me early on. Okay, so all of my muffin tins are about 2/3 of the way full. Now I'm ready to add in some of my streusel topping. I'm gonna use about 2 tablespoons per muffin. I'm gonna generously sprinkle it on top and try to make sure that I get it evenly spread around, especially big clumps of butter, because when they melt, you want them to spread across the entire top of the muffin. I'm sure you guys have watched muffins rise in the oven before, and when they do, you'll see how they start to dome. And when they're doming, you wanna make sure that all of your streusel topping kind of trickles down the side of the muffin tin evenly. So you don't wanna have too much butter clumped up in one spot. The key here is to make sure it's spread around nice and evenly. Now that every single muffin is coated with this gorgeous streusel on top, it's time for these to go in the oven. I'm gonna start them at about 12 to 13 minutes, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I'm gonna check on them. When a toothpick comes out the middle nice and clean, just with a few moist crumbs on top, we know they're ready. It's been about 20 minutes since these have been in the oven, 21 minutes, and I can already tell that they are ready by looking at them, but I'm gonna stab them with a toothpick just in case. Yep, that came out clean. These are good to go. Have you ever made anything so amazing that you impress yourself? That is these muffins right here. These need to cool for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna transfer them to a wire rack, let them finish cooling completely, and then we are going to open one up and see just how amazing the inside of these muffins is. I am so excited to try these, oh my God. Okay, so seriously, if these muffins are not perfection, I don't know what is. I inhaled that muffin. It's so good, you guys. That cinnamon and brown sugar on top, oh my God. And it's like the right amount of sweetness. These, you have to try them. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. I'm out.